it's such a good story. Of course, everybody knows the visit from St. Nicholas, Twas the night before Christmas, went all through the house. It has been, published since 1823, December the 23rd, but there are roots that are in Troy. Now, what everybody always seems to get confused about is that they think that it was written in Troy, and it wasn't. It was written, and I would say there has been a dispute over who actually did write it, but for today's purposes, and I still think he did, we're going to go with Clement Clark Moore. And he is the accepted author at this point. He lived down in the Chelsea neighborhood in New York City. And here's the story that we heard about for a long time, but then there's some other interesting twists now through these years. As the story that we heard, and was published even in the Weiss's History of the City of Troy in the mid-19th century, was that the Butler family, who Reverend Butler was the pastor of St. Paul's Episcopal Church, they were friends with the Moore family. And as a matter of fact, Clement Clark Moore's father was one of the people who helped to dedicate St. Paul's Episcopal Church, which is located on the corner of State and 3rd Street now. At the time, in 1823, it was actually over where Dunkin' Donuts is on Congress and 3rd. So that was the earlier church. The church that we know about wasn't built till 1828. So the families are friends. They go to New York, and Clement Clark Moore reads this lovely little poem to, a group of children sitting there. And Reverend Butler's daughter, Harriet Butler, is among the audience. So she asks him if she could bring the poem back to Troy to read to the Sunday school class. And he agrees. And next thing you know, the poem is then submitted to the Troy Sentinel newspaper, given to Orville Luther Holly, who was the editor of the paper. And the Troy Sentinel was located right on River Street. Those familiar with downtown Troy, it's right where the intersection of First and River comes together. And the building is still there. There's even a plaque that talks about the night before Christmas. And he publishes it in the Troy Sentinel newspaper. And he says, I do not know who we are indebted to for this wonderful little, this little poem about, St. Nicholas. And he publishes it. And of course, it's published anonymously. Clement Clark Moore had not fessed up to it yet. And so every year after that, it was published in, and still is today, published in the Troy newspaper. Now, what's kind of also cool about this is that around 1830, thereabouts, we had a wonderful engraver, an artist engraver that was living in Troy. His name was Myron King. Now, Myron King had made his mark, literally. He was doing things for W&L.E. Gurley, marking surveying instruments. He created the beautiful silk ribbons that were worn by the committee for when the Marquis de Lafayette was on his grand tour and came into Troy. Myron King did the artwork for that. So he ends up in 1830 doing a woodcut engraving of the little Santa Claus elf going over the rooftops, and you see the smoke and the reindeer and everything. And it's really the first image, visual image that we have associated with that poem is Myron King. Jumping ahead a few years, again, this has been published. Finally, Clement Clark Moore says that, yes, he published it, and now, the New York Historical Society has a desk and one of the signed manuscripts that he did. And so, again, Christmas Eve, we're still here, still publishing it here in Troy. No one has disputed that it wasn't first published anywhere else. As far as we know, it still was first here in Troy. Now, what was interesting is about 15 years ago, a young man was writing a book that he claims that his name is Don Foster, and he said that it wasn't Clement Clark Moore that wrote the book, that it was a member, Henry Livingston, of the Livingston Patroons, which are just south of Rensselaer County, going down into Columbia County on the Hudson River. And so he was trying to convince me of this because he'd heard other things I've talked about the night before Christmas. So I said, well, gee, send me your manuscript. And, I'd like to read it. So when all was said and done, honestly, I didn't see any more proof on his side than there was from the Clement Clark Moore side. But what I did find fascinating was in what he was sending me this information. There was a great letter from the Museum of the City of New York and in their holdings. And in this letter, it was a letter to from Orville Luther Holly stating that indeed this letter came to his desk and that it wasn't Harriet Butler, as we were told, and that we thought she's the one who brought it over. It was a Mrs. Daniel II. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. This is kind of interesting. This is a whole new part of the story. And so did some digging and found out that Mrs. Daniel Sackett was also a Sunday school teacher at St. Paul's Episcopal Church. And as it turned out, Harriet Butler, who when they first kind of put that narrative in the 19th century, made Harriet seem to be like a young girl. Well, and in fact, Harriet was also a Sunday school teacher. But it was Mrs. Sackett who brought the letter over to Orville Luther Holly at the Troy Sentinel. So I thought that was great. I mean, it just kind of makes our story, just it fulfills that story even better now that we know a little bit more information about that. So we've even over the years now, of course, we had a mock trial several years ago, around 10 years ago, when this all came out. We had members of the Livingston family there. We had members of the Clement Clark Moore family. We had Jack Casey, who represented the Livingstons, and Eastwood Jones representing the Moore family. We had it over in the Rensselaer County Courthouse, and I was brought in as a witness, as an expert witness, and they had a jury and everything. It was a lot of fun. It was done during the Victorian stroll for Troy, which of course has been going on for 40 plus years now. And so it was great. So the first year, Clement Clark Moore won. They did a retrial the second year, and I think Henry Livingston won the second year. And I think it came to a draw. So over the years, it's just always amazing to me that this story is still so beloved, and it's been published in hundreds of languages, spread around the world. And those different drawings, of course, now that we've seen of Saint Nicholas, it has kind of morphed into what Santa Claus looks like. And it's great fun, and it always comes back to Troy as being the first place where it was published. So we still get to have bragging rights for that.
Does the Hart Cluett Museum have any materials on display? Do you have anything up holiday related, specifically tied into the poem?
Not right now. Last year was the 200th anniversary of the publishing of the poem. So we had a lot of things out last year. We do have some, there's some regular books and things out. We just finished our big green show, which the 50 members of the Van Rensselaer Garden Club decorate our 1827 federal style townhouse in fresh greens, and it's beautiful. And that just wrapped up. And so last year they did it. They took every room took a stanza of the poem and did a different stanza and interpreted the rooms with their amazing greens and things like that. What we do have in our archives, we do have some issues of the Troy Sentinel newspaper that show that wonderful woodcut. A lot of people always ask me, gee, what collection would you love to see walk in the door? And I said, I would love to see the woodcut that Myron King, notched out and etched out for that newspaper. That I would be thrilled beyond belief to see that walk in the door. I don't think it exists right now, but hey, one never knows.
As a professional historian and a student of history, how fascinating is it to see a poem that was first printed, Twas the Night Before Christmas, obviously, that has such sentimental cachet, I think, for a lot of people, but also its impact on pop culture. I mean, we've just seen the poem. You mentioned the play, but just the music and the songs and the movies. I mean, Does that have any specific meaning for you when you kind of look and see how that poem has kind of like rippled through American history and world history?
Oh, sure. I mean, think about it. I mean, every single thing of any, think of all the Santa movies that are out now. Think of the Hallmark movies that are out now. Everything always goes back to that poem. I mean, it really truly does. You don't, I mean, they know, they kind of talk about, the bishops from, that is based on, the bishops in Asia Minor and things like that. But really it's that poem that is somewhere, whoever writer, filmmaker, TV producer, it's in the back of their head or her head, his head, her, it's in their back of their head because that is the thing that everybody knows it. You can't take 10 steps without people knowing most of the poem, or at least all the name of the reindeer, or something like that. They're going to know parts of it. And the fact that, again, that because it was first published here, and, think of Troy was a growing city. So we had, this newspaper went far, it did go farther than Troy. And then to continue and then have other newspapers then start publishing it. Obviously after later on, we weren't the only game in town that was publishing it, but that it's first here is so cool. I mean, it's really is. That's the ultimate in bragging rights.
Are there certain things that you like to do, certain activities, or specifically, are there certain activities that the Hart Cluett Museum does that you think people should know about that maybe they should come to Troy and come visit and try out and experience?
Yeah, well, when we're open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from noon to 5, so to come in and see our exhibits that we have, and currently we have an exhibit on voting in Rensselaer County. We have an exhibit on the Gilded Age in Rensselaer County. Of course, Troy has been for the last 3 seasons one of the major sites of filming for the HBO series, The Gilded Age. And which again has been great for the city of Troy, great for us. Our attendance is up like 30% since that started. And people are rediscovering what a great city we have, and that I love that it's a walkable city. You kind of mentioned one of the things I love to do. I'm fortunate that I live just south of the business district near the Sage campus, and so I spend a lot of time walking around Troy. Certainly, we do our walking tours, and I love nothing better than looking at the architecture that we have here. It's amazing, and I love discovering new things all the time about our buildings. And I love it when people call up and want to use our research library, which really has the largest collection of Rensselaer County history in it. Going through our photographs, and which we have thousands of them, and trying to look at how we've been part of the bigger picture of Rensselaer County and the greater capital region and beyond. I mean, we really have had national and international influences, and still do today. I mean, we've these amazing businesses and young people coming out of graduating from RPI that have started these just incredible companies, and which carries a long tradition of very resourceful people that go back to the 18th century when we were just Vanderheidens and Ashley's Ferry. I love doing that, and I just love walking around the streets of Troy and then riding around Rensselaer County.
For those who are looking for more information on the Hart Cluett Museum, where can they go? Where can they find you?
They can find us right at Hart HartCluett.org. That is our webpage. That will get you to our hours, our exhibits, our programs. We'll have a full slate coming up. We do shut down for we're there, but we're shut down for January, February, so we can do exhibit planning and programming planning and a lot of spring cleaning, that kind of thing. Having three historic buildings on our site, so it's a lot. It's a lot to take care of, and keep checking our webpage. We have a Facebook page. We have Instagram. HartCluett.org is the best way to, and you can get a hold of me if you want to shoot me an email. Our emails are all on there. I'm Kathy Sheehan. I'm the executive director there, and I'm Rensselaer County and Troy City historian.
Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. I think that's great. I just wish everybody a really great, happy holidays and read the poem. It's fun. And then go take a walk over River Street, just south of Monument Square, and you can see the building where it was first published.